What's going on, lifers? I am Jake Thomas. This is another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. And today's guest comes to us by way of Austin, Texas. Born and raised Austin, Texas. Not a transplant like the rest of us, myself included, soon to be. But he is the founder and creator of Man Bar. So Man Bar is a beef stick that is coming to you through grass-fed beef, grass-fed bison mixed and
beef,
fermented. With very choice and specific ingredients that I'll let him tell you all about, and other things that he's into and up to. Without further ado, Mr. Trevor Gibbs, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having us here at your place, man.
Absolutely.
This is a garden.
Yeah, it's a little oasis. My
garden dojo.
Yeah, garden dojo. So we my little sandbag and kettlebell lab is over there. We got the rings right here, and just trying to grow some plants and flowers and work out and shoot my bow and just kind of have a little playscape back here.
So how'd a guy that's so into this, got such a vegetation oasis, wanted to create a meat stick? And where'd that idea come from? And talk us through it.
Sure, yeah. So it kind of started on accident. It starts with, I hunt. I've always been very into training and nutrition, and I like to cook.
Nice.
And so I had a bunch of meat in my freezer from animals I had hunted: whitetail, aoudad, axis, wild pig. We've been hunting last night and this morning. But I had all this meat in the freezer, and I was kind of in a rut of what I was cooking. And so, I basically just got in the kitchen and was like, I'm experimented, start having some fun. Let's cook up some new recipes. And very quickly at the time, I was also, and I still do mostly, is follow Poliquin's meat and nut breakfast. Mm-hmm. And so pretty quickly, the idea came to me of, well, let's make a meat and nut bar, which is where the name originally comes from. Yeah. And so I started making all these wild game meat and nut bars and switch up the nuts. I'd add maybe some dried cranberries or blueberries, or almost like a dehydrated pemmican. Got it.
And this is you just field testing on your own?
This is me in my kitchen just making something for me. Yeah. And so I'm okay at making food taste good. And so pretty quickly I got, had something that was really tasty. And then whenever buddies would come over to hang out, I'd be like, hey, try this. It's like whenever you cook something, you want to share it.
Sure.
Try this, try this, try this. So pretty quickly I had, 10, 12, 15 buddies that were asking if they could pay me to make them for them.
Nice.
And so, they're buddies. So I was like, yeah, of course. Like it's like, just pay for the meat, pay for the ingredients and I'll make it. And so I'd stumbled on, obviously I started running out of game meat, and so I made the decision. I was like, well, let me just make a single one, and so I chose bison and I chose almond. So I was making a bison and almond bar for them. Sometimes I'd put in the cranberries, sometimes I'd switch up the spices a little bit, but pretty quickly that took off when I started explaining to them about why the meat nut combo, why the high protein, high fat, what it's good for physically, mentally, all of that. And so, which we can touch on in a bit, but it just kind of grew from there. And I was kind of like, oh crap, like, do it, this is becoming a thing. So I had a few of them pushing me to start a business with it, but I still wasn't super convinced that I had
sold on the idea.
Yeah, I still wasn't like, all right, I'm going to start this company. So what I did, and what kind of was the tipping point, is I made a bunch of samples and I went out to people I didn't know.
Nice.
Old school. Here's samples.
Yeah,
will you
customer discovery.
Yeah, will you try this and give me feedback? And that was the intention behind it. I just wanted feedback. I ended up doing $4,000 in pre-sales in 3 days. Nice. And kind of had this
just from like word of mouth,
just walking around, like friends of friends of friends.
Cool.
Gyms, stuff like that. And yeah, I did, and I'm not talking like all day, every day, in about 3 to 4 hours each day, did that and kind of had this oh shit moment of like, I think I got something.
Cool.
And so that was the tipping point that led me to then be like, okay, let me actually figure this out.
Sure.
How do you make a product, a CPG product? Where do I get these made? How do I do this?
Yeah.
And so that was the starting point. And 2 years later, roughly year and a half later, I had to pivot the product to a stick. There was some trouble with the nuts. None of the meat co-packers wanted to introduce nuts, allergens into their facility. So, 4 months condensed into one sentence, I replaced the nuts with beef fat.
Got it.
Kept everything else, then went stick form because I no longer needed the bar form.
Got it.
And now we've got a really large, high protein, high fat bison and beef stick.
Really tasty.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I can say from firsthand experience, from today, from yesterday, from a few days before that, I've been field testing happily.
Been munching on them,
yeah. It's fun to talk about cool things and feeling good and having interests or hobbies and passions turn into like a business.
Sure.
Were you always keen with your food or like watchful with what you ate? Was that instilled in you as a kid to kind of be picky and choosy with ingredients? And
growing up, like, no, I mean, I'd say it was. I'd say I had a nice combination of eating decently well. When we had steak or ground beef, like it was usually like a pretty good source.
Sure.
And all that. But also I was definitely the kid that was pouring extra sugar on my cereal with
nice.
skim milk.
Oh yeah.
Definitely eating microwave meals.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah,
Lean
definitely.
cuisines and kids' cuisines.
Yeah, so
Jimmy Dean sausage,
Coca-Colas, candy, all that, all that fun
bagel
stuff.
bites.
So, yep, a lot of bagel bites. But then also I'd make like a really nice, because I wanted to go to culinary school originally after high school.
Cool.
So I also had this, like, when it was time to cook, it was time to cook, and let's throw down.
Working,
let's throw down on it. And so, it wasn't in my mindset, but I love sports. I was very active, always been very active. So I never ate to like overate where, I was always burning it off, but really bad acne growing up.
Yeah. Same.
Lots of cavities growing up. And then probably, I don't know, basically like the bad, I started eating less of the bad stuff and just more of the good stuff. And now it's, predominantly your animal based, 90%.
Yeah.
I'll still make corn tortillas.
Sure.
I'll definitely still eat ice cream and Reese's and all that. It's just way fewer and way less than it used to be growing up. So
acne and cavities aren't as fun as
it's not
as they are.
not a good look.
As an adult when they are as a teenager. You said, this is like within 2 years, so it's moving pretty quickly, right? From like R&D, let's call it, to actual development.
That's what people tell me. It seemed like it took a long time. There was in that whole time, like pivoting from the bars to the sticks, that was a probably good 4-month delay, which I'd already kind of had somewhat of something that was starting to look like a business. And then to have that, I'd already taken some pre-sales orders
for the bars. Got it.
And so that felt like a long time, whereas in hindsight it whatever.
4 months isn't going to make or break you.
Exactly.
4 month wait, right?
Yeah, but I was kind of, once I made the decision to do it, it's like, let's do this. So there wasn't a whole lot of messing around.
Nice.
After that decision.
Nice. What was and the demand kept being there as far as an encouragement from friends. The feedback was good from all the pre-sales and people that you're checking it out with. Yeah,
the feedback from day one has been really solid. There's been a couple people that didn't like it more because to them bison was very gamey.
Interesting.
Which I don't think it is, but also like I eat a lot of game
goat
animals
or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so there was a couple of those, but pretty much everyone else from the bars to now the sticks were a little surprised at how good they were, because I don't think, you know, I take a lot of pride in that. A lot of people, and one of the biggest influences to keep going is that when I'd see someone take a bite, very often they'd get a big smile on their face.
Oh, nice. Like right afterwards?
Yeah,
oh,
it's
cool.
just,
Were you watching me do that? Not
yeah. So it was almost like
I feel violated
like
now.
like joyous confusion of why it tasted so good, because normally it's, you know, you have a stick and it's like, all right, I'm gonna eat this, but
I'm expecting it to be.
I just want some protein.
I hope it's not. The bar's really low.
Right. I'm not eating it for enjoyment. I'm eating it because it's a convenient source of protein.
Utility.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as much about pleasure.
For sure.
Okay. Like my expectations aren't the highest for this thing.
You're not expecting a you know, perfectly cooked ribeye when you. Not saying mine tastes like that, but yeah, the bar's pretty low on what's out there. And so, you know, with ours, I formulated it from, you know, it was like it had to taste good. I wanted the utility, which is why, you know, we've got, they're big. I mean, they're over 200 calories. There's 17 grams of fat. There's 12 grams of protein. So I wanted the macros, and especially I wanted the fat in it. That helps from the taste standpoint for sure, but also from a utility standpoint. You know, we talked about this, like that's where the calories, that's where the satiation, that's where the energy is. And so when you're out, typically when you're eating a stick, that means you're doing something. You were eating them today. Well, we were hunting last night. We were hunting this morning. When you're on a road trip, okay, let's grab one. This is convenient. I don't want to stop. When you're running around town.
Even dinner, like last night.
You even had it for dinner late.
And I was like, what are we going to do for dinner? And you're like, I'm fasting. I was like, typical, my freaking luck. Like, he's going to fast. And I was like, I'll eat a couple of the sticks, man. And that freaking hit the spot, dude.
Yeah, like, you had, and it was just, what, 2 of them you had? So it's, so there's genuine utility, and I wanted to go beyond just the convenience of, let me get some protein. It was more of, no, if we're going to eat this, like, yes, there's the protein in there,
make a meal out of it.
Let's get something that's actually going to keep us mentally and physically sharp to keep going, keep doing whatever it is we're doing. And that was the mindset behind it all.
Nice one. What I still feel violated having been watched unknowingly what my reactions were like as I was biting into the bar. Like I feel violated.
I won't tell them about the moaning you did after you.
we got footage of that too. I work in an industry where when I first came into it, I was bringing sand to a beach.
Okay.
You know, I've done that before where I've gone into industries bringing sand to the beach, but having to find like something that makes me different. What makes me stand out? What makes me unique? What makes what I offer or my, you know, value proposition better, different, more appealing?
Right.
I've heard of meat sticks before.
Sure.
I've heard of jerky. I've heard of pemmican. I've heard of this. I've heard of that. Like, what makes you different? What made you say, I'm not bringing sand to the beach?
Sure.
Or, you know, or I am, but it's better sand, or it's different sand, or like, hey, check my sand out. You might like it. Because that's hard. I mean, that's a lot of competition.
Sure.
There's a lot of loyalty, a lot of ignorance. That you got to kind of dispel and bust through. So, like, I don't know. I'm not saying it as a pessimist, but like, there's got to be some kind of like, you know,
why should someone buy these?
Or even like the negative angel on the shoulders, like, this isn't gonna work, Trevor. Like, come on now.
I mean, I was very hesitant in the beginning because I had found the co-packer that I wanted to use because they used the fermentation process that I wanted, which I'll touch on in a sec. But you know, they were basically saying like, this bar is really good. We're not doing the nuts, and we only make sticks. And so it was, you know, that during that 4-month part, it was a kind of a, you know, it was like, how bad do you want to do this? Because I was very hesitant against making a stick for that exact reason. It's like, man, there's a million sticks out there.
Got it.
And so that's why it took 4 months instead of probably like 1.
Because they could have just been like, hey, we got this model down. It's an easy template. Tell us how you want it to look and what you want.
Me personally, I had to get past I had to reframe my thinking around, I've got this unique meat and nut bar that's very good, that people are liking, that I've got some traction with. It's looking, do I want to sit in the kitchen and make these all day? No.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to actually do this and get to any sort of scale, I need help on that department. And so they're asking me to make a stick. And it's like, well, everyone makes a stick. I lost my uniqueness, what you're talking about. So I would say probably somewhere around the third month, it got to the point where I was like, all right, if you were going to make a stick, what would it look like?
Interesting.
And so then I just went back to what are the principles or the properties of why I made the meat and nut bar. It was, let's get a convenient source of high fat and high protein, and let's make it regeneratively sourced. And so when I started thinking of those, and really it was that combination of high fat and high protein, I started looking at the fat content in everyone else's sticks.
Yeah.
And then that's where I kind of had to like, all right,
there is space.
How much fat can we pump in one of these things? And so that's when I started talking with my co-packer and be like, all right, let's do this, but like I need triple the fat of what you're doing with everyone else.
What was their reaction to that?
They were like, man, we've never done that before. Nice. And I go, well,
perfect.
Yeah, perfect. But I was like, well, let's try it. I've got to pay for the samples anyways. Yeah. If they suck, like I'm paying for it. It's no risk to you.
Yeah.
Just let's try this. So they made me a batch. It was pretty good. I asked them to put a little more fat in there and make them bigger. And then when they made those, they sent them back, and I had one bite, and I was like, this is it.
Nice.
So back to your question on the unique part is like, I fought it for a while because kind of
the aesthetics.
First level is just, it's a stick. Yeah. Everyone makes sticks.
Yeah. But now you got a stick that's called a bar.
Now I got a stick that's called a bar, which is probably confusing.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of.
but the differentiators, I would say, are one. We call them slow fermented American meat sticks. So if we break that down, the slow fermented part, pretty much everyone in the industry uses what's called an encapsulated acid. That is typically a isolated or synthetic version of an acid. Mm-hmm. The encapsulation part is a hydrogenated oil. That hydrogenated oil is, what we would call a glorified motor oil that they add hydrogen to so that it can be a solid at room temperature.
Yep.
You mix that with the meat, put it in whatever form you want, a stick, a bar, whatever it is, throw it in the oven or the smoker, and as the temperature increases, that oil melts because now it's no longer going to be a solid at room temperature. We're increasing it, so that melts, exposing that synthetic acid to the meat, which then starts kind of the shelf stability pseudo fermentation process. But that oil's not evaporating, it goes into the meat. And that's why with a lot of your popular meat sticks out there, it's got that waxy, spongy texture thing going on that doesn't quite taste like food, which goes back to like, let's just get a convenient source of protein, but it's not pleasurable. And I'm sure it's
distracting.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very aware of this, is for people who have like serious autoimmune issues and gut issues and all that.
Oh yeah, that's a fast track to IBS irritation.
Absolutely.
It's already irritable bowel syndrome. Like, you want to flare that up? Like, have some of that stuff.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I've got a handful of friends that actually had quit eating meat sticks because they'd be on the floor in a ball.
Oh, ulcerative colitis?
Absolutely.
Like that?
So I wanted the fermentation process. So that's what most people do. We do the fermented. We use a starter culture made from beets. And we basically use beets to ferment the meat. And so that allows for the whole profile of the acid, not just an isolate. Yeah, naturally occurring.
Not synthetic.
Which introduces probiotics into the stick, which allows it to be much more easy on the gut. All these people that can't eat.
Not being dehydrogenated either.
Yeah, no hydrogenated oils, none of that. Oh. And so we get to skip all of the bad stuff in most sticks and put in some actual genuine utility or benefit.
Yeah.
with the probiotics, and now we've got a really nice fermentation, more food tasting product. And that's what I always crack up, because one of the comments I always get from people, you know, after they smile, is they say, "Oh, this tastes like food." And it's like, what a funny thing to say for a food product.
Again, the bar is that low,
right?
Expectation, you know.
So that's the slow fermented part. The American part is we don't import animals. It puts a limitation on our business, but I'm not going to do it. So pretty much a lot of people are importing beef from Australia, New Zealand, Uruguay, Brazil, China, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it, because I also want to support the American economy, and I want to support American ranchers, and I want to support American soil.
Nice.
And so that's the part where we only source from places that are doing, like, small family-owned ranches that are doing regenerative agriculture principles. And so, you know, it really was, as I was formulating the product, looking at this multi-layered, how many people can we positively benefit?
Yeah.
Not only the consumer, but the American rancher, the American economy, American soil, which has much bigger effects on everything.
Sure.
That would be the differentiators in the formulation. And then also, like I said earlier, the size of them. I don't amateur hour not having one out here, but they're twice as big as most sticks. they're big. They're 2.5 times the calories of most.
It's very
sticks.
Texas.
Yeah.
It's very Texas.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah.
But also the fat content.
Yep.
You know, we've got 17 grams of fat in ours. Most sticks are, 2 to 6.
Yeah, and half the calories.
And maybe 80 calories.
Yeah.
And so you're getting
Almost
a
purely
substantial protein. Just out of one stick, you're getting something you're gonna feel. You're not, a pet peeve of mine was, I was tired of eating 2, 3, and 4 of the other sticks. And now it's, as you've seen the last couple of days, one's usually enough.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna eat 2 because you
dinner.
didn't eat dinner.
Yeah, but even still, like 2's plenty. Like 2 is great.
Yeah. Very long-winded answer to your question.
No,
but there's quite a few differentiators.
Yeah. And like,
even though from the outset, it is a stick.
I love it. It's a stick that's called a bar. It's still also a differentiator.
Yeah.
Even that is unique. Talking about the reasons, American beef, American economy, American ranchers, American soil, the importance of how much the calories carry as far as in protein and fat, not just one or the other.
Sure.
What about people that you compete with? What percentage of them would you say are using these other practices that you're not? As far as in with the hydrogenated oils, some of these other lesser than qualitative ingredients, synthetic additives.
Sure.
Would you say that's the majority?
Absolutely.
It's probably a rhetorical, like, obvious people like, obviously, Jake, duh. Like, it's a overwhelming majority, or like?
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Better question. How many people do you think do it like you do?
There's a few.
A few. So a few.
Yeah. So there's, like Paleo Valley comes to mind. They're great. I've eaten their sticks before. I like them.
Oh.
But
y'all are a rare breed, essentially.
To differentiate with them, ours are a lot bigger, way more fat. Ours has this one has bison. So, still a few differentiators. But there's them, there are certainly people that are using starter cultures, but your Chomps, your Maui Nui, these guys, and it's, they're claiming they have high quality meat. Like Maui Nui has the Axis from Hawaii. I hunt Axis here in Texas. They're phenomenal. They're delicious. Chomps, they do grass-fed and finished, I believe. But they're importing from Australia,
New Zealand.
Which again, there's nothing wrong with
right.
Australian.
Great beef.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just
you'd rather promote American.
I'd rather promote American.
Yeah.
And both of them put the encapsulated acids in there. So even with that high quality meat, even if I were to take the most perfect ribeye, regenerative, American, you know, the best ribeye that's ever been ribeyed.
Yeah.
And I grind it up and I put those encapsulated acids in there. It's like, well, what's the point?
It's like the people that, when I used to bartend, people that would come and order a Red Bull and vodka with like the really elite vodka.
Yeah.
And I'm just be like, come on. Please.
Yeah, let's get a 1942 tequila with soda.
Whatever. Yeah. And I'm just like, drink the well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like fucking Red Bull in it.
Yeah.
Christ, let me get a Stoli Elite sugar-free, you know,
Yeah.
sugar-free Red Bull and Stoli Elite. I'm like, this is like a $60 Red Bull vodka.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, take the well.
Yeah, for sure.
So similar to that.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion, yeah. I'm sure they might disagree, but I don't know.
Well, what do you, I mean, that makes sense. I get it. And, you know, for other people that have done it a certain way, there's consumer ignorance, a lot of profitability. Like you said, you're turning down business and growth potential based on your insistence of your methods.
Yeah.
You know, what you're gonna stand for.
Well,
rather,
the encapsulated. I mean, we've been talking about this the last day or so. You know, there's corners you can cut, and whether you're doing it purposefully or not, it's way cheaper to use encapsulated acids.
Yep. Way
cheaper. They're consistent. Like, there's a reason they're used.
Sure.
They're consistent. They allow for symmetrical batches. It's, you know, it's from an efficiency standpoint, I get it.
Yeah.
But there are cons to it, which the health cons.
Sure.
You know,
like we were talking about nature versus technology.
Yeah, nature versus technology.
Right. Like, yes,
which
this
one's
works.
your North Star?
Technologically, this is correct. It is more efficient.
Right.
It's got more continuity, like you said, between batches. Like the specificity is going to be the same. There's not going to be any difference or marginal, you know, change from this one's a little bit more dense. This one's a little lighter. This one's a little bit bigger. This one's less. Whatever. They're going to be like spec similar.
Sure.
But naturally, it's going to come with a cost.
But there comes a cost with that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with ours, it's like, it takes longer. It's more expensive. It's, you know, we're selling a $7 to $8 meat stick. Like, I get that it's more expensive. You know, I get if you're at Whole Foods and you're seeing a $2.50, $3 stick and you're seeing a $7 or $8 stick.
Better be like, what is this?
Yeah, it's like, whoa, like, that's crazy.
That's a big difference, yeah.
But, you know, there's reasons for it. It's not just me wanting like 7,000% profit on, you know, on every, or margins on everything.
Yeah.
It's more expensive. It takes longer. It's less uniform. There's more things that can go wrong. There's more, there's just more stuff that can go wrong is the best way to put it. And so, your margins are lower. You have more, you know, even with a higher price stick, I'm probably throwing away a lot more sticks than they are, or using them for my own personal consumption rather than like selling them to people.
I'm perfect that you brought it up. So what's like the shelf life or perishability of them?
Well, it's still, so ours are a year.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, that's legally what we can say. It's longer than that, but legally we can say a year.
Got it.
And it's got to be that. So
would the other ones be longer?
My assumption would be yes.
Yeah. Like mine too. I'm thinking like those things are probably good for years. And I mean that not in a complimentary way, but in a way of like yours is more perishable because it's more natural.
Yeah,
you know, it's not going to be 25-year shelf stable thing.
And that's a good point, because part of it is, you know, we've got to be very aware of our order sizes and all that, because we don't want sticks sitting on a shelf for, you know, 6 or 8 months, whereas those guys might be able to get away with that.
Yeah.
But they do last a year, and they're not going to last you a year once you get them in your hands. I mean, it's, you know, that's the benefit of it. It's, you know, no one's buying a meat stick to eat in a year's time. So
you figure they're going to go a lot sooner than that, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
They don't sit around too well. I mean, I guess they do, but just rather they're not going to sit there and collect dust. What about like stuff you're up against, you know, whether it's personal beliefs, you know, morals, ethics, things that you see, you know, how and why you need to be making a difference, maybe, or like what you see in the industry. You've kind of touched on already, stuff that it's like, why do we have to do it like this? You know, you and I were talking earlier about, you know, the difference between playing God and manipulating nature, as opposed to letting things kind of play out as they may, but using technology to kind of perverse that. Yeah, like, you know, we're in an age where health consciousness is pretty forward and pretty much on the forefront of a lot of people's thinking now. We talked a lot about illnesses, dietarily related chronic illness and disease that's kind of rampant throughout the country. Like, what, I don't know, do you have an alternate mission? Maybe that's my better way to ask it. You know, is it more to you than just creating a product that would spawn from a fun hobby and passion?
Well, for sure. I mean, that's why, you know, that as we got into that and for the formulation of the product, it's why we made the decisions to source from regenerative ranches only in the US.
Yeah.
It's why we made the decision to do the starter culture instead of the encapsulated acids. I think that, you know, we were talking about some products that
questionable practices, maybe.
Yeah, what's his name? Logan Paul. We were talking about their new
Lunchables.
His new Lunchables thing with Mr. Beast, and it's like, me personally, I don't know him, obviously. I'm not trying to talk shit, but I would never in a million years do that. I don't care what the money is. I don't.
You think he eats that product?
Absolutely not.
Or does it regularly?
There's no way.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's stuff like that where it's just even if it limits how big our business could be, at the end of the day, it's like, I'd rather make a little bit of money doing the right thing than a lot of money not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And because, like, I need to sleep at night. My sleep's important, and it's like, it's I'm not saying money's not important. I'm not saying that at all. You know, the best case scenario is do something good and make a lot of money. But yeah, I think from a moral standpoint, it's important. And if you're selling something that is causing other people harm, that's not a good thing for the soul. You know, like I remember some lady, you know, there was I'm going to butcher the details, but basically there was a panel. One of the people was from McDonald's, and they were talking about, you know, how they're feeding the world and how they're trying to make all these changes to feed the world and all this stuff. And I loved it because one of the other guys on the panel was like, sorry to be this guy, and like, I hate that it sucks that you're here to
take the brunt of it.
To take the end of what I'm about to say. But he's like, y'all aren't feeding the world, you're diseasing the world. And it's like, your chicken nuggets have 37 ingredients and none of them are chicken. You know, and he just kind of,
I used to love those things.
Yeah, and he just destroyed her whole thing. But it's true. It's like,
and the poor representative.
It's
not like it's her.
Yeah, it's not. She wasn't the CEO or anything. But it's that type of thinking of, you know, let's feed the world. Or Logan Paul's like, let's create this thing that we can make. Yes, we can market it. Yes, we can sell it. We've got the platform. He's got the platform.
Totally.
He is who he is. Like, everything he touches seems to turn to gold. All of that. But man, you couldn't like make a healthy product and do this. You couldn't make a hydration product with like the best ingredients. You couldn't do these things. But what's even worse, like now you can have the whole evil conversation. Like, now you're targeting kids with sugars and leads and whatnot. It's like, you know, it's like, we can do
going
better
after the young.
Yeah, like
preying on the young.
Yeah, when is enough?
Yeah.
So that all goes into my thinking.
It's got to even more so now because you're expecting father.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
A little bit more on your thought process.
Well,
you got a family to think about and the legacy, and
I'd
congrats
say,
on that, by the way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we got a little boy on the way. And I would say it just, it didn't change anything. I mean, I made all these decisions before, but it certainly reaffirmed them. And you know, when I think about my son that's coming, it's like, he's not going to eat one of those Mr. Beast, Logan Paul Lunchables. And I'm sorry to keep picking on him, but you know, the Lunchables, we can pick on them. It's any of this stuff. I
mean, we ate them growing up.
Absolutely.
You know, ate them growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to sound judgmental, or, you know, I understand that I understand their economics to this, and people make what they make and all that. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, just eat a ribeye every day. You know, I'm not trying to say that, but from a bigger perspective, I think that we can do better as a nation by pushing healthier options, and instead of potentially subsidizing corn and soy and these things, like how can we simultaneously even subsidize organic foods and give these ranchers who are using regenerative management principles, how can we help them out even more? And that there's just, you got to change the incentives and disincentives to doing things.
Yeah, I think a lot of his people are de-incentivized.
Yeah.
To be that way. You know, like my mother talked about that when she told me about that jokingly a few years ago when she turned 65, and she's like, you know what? It's crazy that I don't get rewarded for being healthy.
Yeah.
As a senior.
For sure.
You know, if anything, I get condemned.
Yeah.
Because I get pestered now with like, are you sure you're fine? Like, you really need to come in for a checkup. It's like, I'm fine, but I still pay the same amount in Medicare, the same amount in Social Security, even though I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. And as far as in like, hey, I'm helping the system by not being a burden.
Sure.
You know, by not having to withdraw funds from the benevolent fund of the account, you know, to where I need all these prescriptions or operations and whatnot because I'm, you know, an invalid or unable to care for myself because of the choices dietarily and lifestyle that I've made that have resulted in my current state, which is amazing. You know, like I told you this, my mother was given this like death sentence after a bone density scan several years ago, where she had really negative T-scores regarding osteoporosis, like -4, -5, like really bad. And the doctor basically told her she has a year to live.
Yeah.
Now, how exactly that phrasing went, like you have a year to live, I don't know. Or if he was like, look, if you fall or if you break something, like it's not going to be good. Like you're going to plummet, kind of thing. And it's like, man, so much of that could have been prevented with adequate nutrition. Even though she came from a great family, she was born and, you know, raised in Mexico, grew up in an old world sense of kind of pick it, pull it, or kill it foods. But like coming here, immigrating here, and then getting enculturated with the standard American diet, like on top of that, you know, a couple different changes in lifestyle, man, it rocks your world. So like I've seen that, you know, like in my own home, you know. And now you're talking about having a baby come into the world. We were talking about, you know, infancy rates and changes and issues mothers deal with pregnancy, and it's so much around food, man. Like I really, really, really believe, you know, the single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regards to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. Yet, you know, all the commercials, Super Bowl, whatever spectacle, whatever's going on, it's chips this,
pharma,
soda that, big pharma that. Like it's not the Man Bar. It's not Mike's Organic Orange Farm.
Right.
It's not these little, like, you know, bohemian, holistic mom and pop, like artisanal shops that could be holding the secrets or the keys to our health. But it's like, hey, eat more of this, watch more of this, read more, listen more.
Yeah, I mean, it is deep rooted in everything. I mean, my mom my sister when she was 47, 0 complications. She walks 5 miles a day.
Your mother had your sister at 47.
Yeah, there's a 20 and a half year difference. But she walked 5 miles every day. She ate organic food for a long time. Yeah, no, 0 complications, like crushed it. But she still, when she goes to the doctor, they like, oh, your blood pressure's like slightly out of it, you know. And
like, let's like study this woman.
Yeah.
You know, ask her questions.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you do it?
Right.
What's your secret? Like, don't, you need to do this. Like, don't tell her to change anything.
Right.
Like, if anything, be like, okay, what can we learn from this body and this mind that has been able to do that?
For sure. And so, you know, you see that throughout everything. We were talking about it with the pregnancy thing. It's just like the increase in
C-sections,
stillborns relative to the rest of the world, where it's most everywhere else is 1 in several hundred, and here's like 1 in 3 or 1 in 5 or something.
It's crazy, man.
That correlates. You know, I'm certainly not claiming to be a doctor or know everything on this, but you know, when you start, you might be here soon.
I'm working on it.
But when you look at that and you're like, all right, let's look at
what are the known knowns here? What are
the known knowns, and then just what is society looking like?
Yep.
What are our, you know, ADD numbers? What are our ADHD numbers? What are our mental disorder numbers? All that. And sure, I think a lot of that has to do with social media as well, and you know, but all of this stuff is like intertwined. You're in the middle, and just all this stuff's pressing against you. And if you're doing all of that stuff with a bad diet and you're not exercising,
no amount of green powder
or
meditation or manifestation or grounding is gonna fix it. Like, that's all great, and this is beautiful and important, and God, you know, like this morning we got out here, got our feet in the grass, and yesterday when we got here, like within 5 minutes of being at Trevor's place, we're playing with all the toys, the rings you see here, all the knees over toes stuff, throwing sandbags around, doing a bunch of like mobility work within 5 minutes. And we're laughing, saying like, you know, it's funny, in the past they'd be like, hey man, come check out my house, like the guys show the guys around, it's like, look at the man cave, maybe we'll play with some guns, and then it's like, let's drink some beers, you know. And now it's like, hey, we're playing with just a different sense of self. But still, like, all of that is, as important as it is, it's still supplemental to me to sustenance.
Sure.
You know, because like, you try and manifest out poison in your body. Try and ground out poison in your body. Try and yoga out poison from your body. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like, you're talking about the single most effective thing you can do.
Well, I mean, and it certainly affects, not only that, but affects your thoughts, which I think affect your communication. And, and as far as the relationships in your life, personal, professional, whatever they may be, that's always, communication's always going to be number one. And so even if you're doing all of the, you know, even if you're, it's spokes on a wheel, like they're all important, but you know, because even if you're eating good and you're working out, you're doing now, you know, if you're doing your cold plunge and your sauna and all those, if you're
a miserable
wrestling with if you're wrestling with those demons inside and you're not communicating and you're not listening, and if you're not doing something about that, like, you're also
drowning frogs on the
what's the point of all that other
frogs
stuff
after hours or something like that.
What's the point of all that other stuff if you can't be open and honest with yourself and with others? So I look at it like spokes on a wheel, where it's like it's all important for the wheel to work.
They're like complementary yet symbiotic.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So what's next? I mean, like, to the moon with Man-Bar, you know, like Archer or not rifle.
Not rifle
got turned down. Inherits a kingdom, or like, where do you see it going, you know?
You know, I don't really look at right or wrong, and probably any, thankfully I don't have any investors right now, because they'd probably hate to hear this, but I don't really think of the success of Man-Bar in terms of dollars. Obviously we need to build a successful business, I'm not saying that. We look, you know, we pour over the numbers almost on a daily basis, but you know, success to me is, I mean, I just posted yesterday about getting feedback from 3 different parents about their young daughters eating them. And so like, well, I mean, they're stoked on them, and that's why, you know, it's like one of them eats one every day after school while she does her homework.
How old are they?
That one's probably, I think she's 6 or 7.
Oh, fantastic.
But then the other 2 are 3 and 4 years old. And these 3 and 4-year-old girls are asking for man bars for breakfast or for a snack or whatever. So like that to me makes me happy.
Cool.
And again, that's not just like me trying to feel good and talk shit, but it's like, if I can build a successful business where I'm touching people's lives like that, and I'm like helping families, and we're sourcing from the ranchers who are doing the regenerative thing, where families are seeing the utility of it, you know, husband, wife, kids are doing it, the kids are enjoying it, the parents are happy because the kids are enjoying it, knowing that it's high quality. The more I can get in front of people and the more of that I can do, that's what's interesting to me.
It's bringing it home.
If you know, if we're the size of Chomps in 10 years, and great, as long as we keep our principles and our like mental models of how we're doing things.
Cool.
As long as we don't cut any corners as the company grows, because it's not going to come from me. You know, but I think as long as you like keep your soul about you, or Man Bar keeps its soul of why we're doing what we're doing, and never start making decisions strictly for let's eke out a little more profit. Maybe we don't need to do regenerative ranching. Let's just do, you know, grass fed's okay, even if it's grain finished, or man, we could cut our expenses by 40% if we order from New Zealand or Brazil or China,
or put less fat in it.
Or like, they don't need that much fat. You know, if we start making those decisions on the product, then like I should go out of business.
Ooh.
You know, like I shouldn't exist if we're doing that, because then I'm no different than, you know, a Slim Jim or.
I grew up on Slim Jim. Easy.
No, they're again, they're good, but you know, if I start making those decisions, then I should go out of business. Like I shouldn't exist if I'm just trying to do what everyone else is doing, because they're already doing it and they've been doing it for longer than I have, and they're probably better at that than me. But I think I can be better at this.
Don't get into impurity and poisoning.
Exactly.
If you're not going to be as good as them anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
you might as well do it the harder and cleaner way. You know?
And if it means it's going to be a smaller business, that's fine. But again, at least I can sleep at night, and I can feel comfortable handing my future son one, and my friend's kids one, and you know, I don't have to. I'm not looking at it as like a dollar sign that they took one. I'm looking at it as like, awesome. At least they're going to eat something pretty good right now.
That's awesome. That's cool about the kids. I can just imagine. You know, like, hey, just Man Bar it. Like, it's almost like a verb. Like, you could verb it or adverb it.
I hope so. That'd be great.
Just like it's a little clicky thing, you know?
Sure. I mean, there's so many things that are interesting. You know, the name Man Bar, that came, or as I told you, that originated from the meat and nut bar. I kept it because...
All right, everybody, that's kind of an acronym, right? Meat and nut, M-A-N, bar, Man Bar.
But I kept it because I got so much positive feedback about it as I was... That was kind of like a placeholder name in the beginning, because I just got tired of saying meat and nut bar. And so many people started loving it, and men and even women, and you know, they were like, dude, you got to keep that. Like that's good. Like this is good. And you know, at the time there was more, I'd say, gender stuff going on. Or it was really starting, and you were kind of seeing some of this anti-male stuff. You know,
which stuff? I don't know.
and so then it became a whole other thing that I wasn't expecting, of just like, no, we're going to be unapologetic about calling it this. And because it's not coming from a negative place, it's not coming from a place of us trying to troll anyone. It's not coming from a... You will never, ever hear me say a negative word about women or any of that. You know, it's not that. And so, you know, that then hopefully will help change the narrative in our little world of just, well, it's either going to attract people that love it or don't care, or we'll get some negative feedback from people, but those are the type of people that, we can either have a healthy conversation with them. Be like, why did you have that reaction? or we just don't have to waste time with them, and if they're not willing to have that conversation.
It's a free country, God bless.
Yeah, be angry. Do whatever you want. So, I don't know. There's a lot of layers that have come up with this, which are interesting and cool. Kind of happy to be having those conversations.
Meat and nut bar, man bar. Meat and nut, M-A-N.
Yeah, so it's no nuts and no bar now. So horrible name by those regards.
No, but if anything, it's kind of cool. It speaks to the story.
Yeah.
It speaks to the originality. You know, the attempts of, hey, we tried to do this, we're doing that, but you know what? It all kind of works, and we're keeping to it. We're staying loyal to our idealism and the inspiration. So
sure,
it's kind of cool. What before we let you get out of here, because you're a busy guy and we just got to go to the pediatrician. What's next for the Man Bar, and what's next for Trevor Gibbs?
Well, the big thing is, so we're only in month 3 of being launched. And so this first quarter has been mainly about getting feedback from people and just seeing if people are reordering them. And we haven't done any marketing, done some podcasts, but we've been predominantly word of mouth. Cool. And so the next thing that we're doing, and we've talked about this, and you're going to come do it, is we're starting a hybrid podcast and hunting show.
Yep. And
so the point of that is basically, the premise of that is really to get people back out in nature. So, with the people with the guests we're going to be having on, we're just going to have, a lot of them will have not hunted before.
Nice.
Some of them will, and we'll talk about what they're doing in the community to help people. But it's really going to be about how do we onboard new hunters, or at least give people an experience of what it's like.
Nice.
Some of the guests don't even want to hunt. They just want to come on a hunt.
Nice.
They want to see what it's like. They don't want to pull the trigger, but they want to see the skinning of the animal and the processing of it. And so it's really going to be for anyone who's interested in hunting but doesn't know what the first step should be. We're trying to answer all those beginner questions. And so we've shot 1 episode already. I'm in conversation with probably 10-ish other people, 12 other people that are all going to come do it.
Yep.
And we're going to go out. We're going to do a podcast in my truck on the way out to the lease. We're going to talk about guns and hunting and relationship with food and hunting and regenerative agriculture and just all of these things. Talk about what the person's got going on too, but just kind of explore some of these topics that, for whatever reason, like guns and hunting are taboo now.
Are they?
So we're gonna do that, and that's a big one. I'm very excited about that. That'll be, I'm as excited about that as I am the sticks, just because
Nice.
I think it can be a nice onboarding for people.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. We'll continue doing podcasts and with other people like this, and really just grow the business. Need to start building out a little more of a team.
It's hard doing it solo.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that. I've got a baby boy coming in March.
You gotta neck those names down.
I know.
That name
Yeah,
list,
we
right?
gotta
make
get the
some more
name right.
cuts. Gotta cut the roster down to 53.
Yep, exactly. So that's kind of babies and Man Bar, and this podcast thing we're doing is probably going to be my life for the foreseeable future. I'll keep back here throwing sandbags around and getting on the rings and all that. But
it's got the 200-pound sandbag, you guys. And for anybody that doesn't know, that thing's a beast. That is a beast.
So, but yeah, that's what's going on with me.
Awesome.
And I'd say, but before we leave, I want to ask you, because of your experience and all the research and everything you do, I'd like to hear about how you utilize the sticks and what your thoughts are on them, aside from not just they're really good, but just from a macro standpoint or energy standpoint, whatever comes to mind with me saying that.
Good question first. I love the casing.
Okay.
Here's rather I should say the detail that you go into the casing with, about it being collagen something free. It's some
dye free
collagen casing. So it's not just crap skin. It's not totally discard, but like to go to the depth of being like, this is dye-free collagen casein.
Yeah.
Like that to me is a nuance that most people are not going to take. So if I see that as like, I'm like, that's meticulous attention to detail. That's knowing a consumer. That's also being very proud of your product and very intent on what it's going to have in it. You know, like sure,
Yeah.
the ingredients of the different types of beef, everything's domestic. It's a mixture of bison and beef. It's great. It's awesome. But to be like dye-free, I'm like, that's a real dotting of an I, you know? So that one's a big part to me. The completeness as far as the nutrition that it provides, right? For the mix of macros, like you touched on, between the amount of protein and the amount of fat. It's what, 12 grams of protein, 17 grams of fat, something like that, right? So it's like a 65-35 fat to protein ratio, 210 calories. So it's a very complete source of sustenance. Other things can be, you know, for the most part, jerkies and bars, they're like 85 to 90% protein.
Right.
Usually. They're almost pure protein, like you said. Some of them are, you know, 2 grams of fat total, between 80 and 150 calories, unless you're getting like a half-pound bag.
Yeah.
But for the for the size of this meat stick, it packs a lot of completeness to it. It's not just fat, it's not just protein, but it's a good mixture of both, and the ratio of 65-35 kind of speaks to that. The efficacy, the ethics that you stand for, I connect with. It resonates with me. So between the beef being American, not prioritizing, but demanding that.
Yeah.
Taking care of the rancher, knowing the farmer, the soil. Like, I connect with that. It matters to me in my life. You know, we met in Wyoming, right? We were up there supporting producers, ranchers, and purveyors from locally in the area of Wyoming and all over the country, that people were having their beef graded and judged based on how they took care of it. And it's like, I walked away from that really with a lot of reverence, in the sense of like, yeah, it was cool judging steaks and like sitting there eating steaks and being like, this is awesome. And this is people like that had been so much fun. Yes, it was fun. The meat was amazing. It tasted great. But judging was difficult. Judging for me was emotionally difficult. Like, who the fuck am I to judge anybody, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I judge people all the time. We all do. Like, if you say you don't, you're lying. And I need to work on it. Like anybody.
It's different when you know the effort and the energy that goes into it.
This was somebody's baby.
Yeah,
I mean, this was somebody's everything. Whether it was their first go at it because of the first few years, it's new to them, or this is like 5 generations worth of farming and life, to where it's like, this is their everything. And I was like, you know, I get a few minutes of smelling, tasting, chewing, feeling, and then having to say, you know, 1 to 10, how do you call it? I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And doing that for 20 of them in a row, it's like, you know, it was emotionally taxing, but I don't know. I just see something like that with the product, and again, to the details of things like, you know, a dye-free collagen casein, the demand of what its ingredients are going to be like, the things that you stand for. I was a similar kind of respect that I have for you in that product as like what I got in Wyoming, being like, yeah, it's not just machine pressed and CNC'd and let's throw whatever dye we can into it and use these, you know, hydrogenated oils that are going to yield a more certain and schematically correct product, but like we're going to compromise on a lot of things, mainly health. And like, you know, up there was a big reminder of how important that is, and to see how many of these people that mattered to, it was like, this isn't dead. This isn't a dying thing. We might be a small but mighty army, the resistance that we are, this little underground grassroots movement of health consciousness, you know, particularly regarding animal products. It feels like we're taboo and weird, but yeah, a lot of what your product stands for I connect with, and so it's easy for me to bite into it and enjoy it. But yeah, it goes down a lot better and sits better in my belly and in my heart, knowing that it comes from a good place.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's a lot.
No, I appreciate that, man. The you know, I got into interested in regenerative agriculture quite a few years ago, and so, you know, I'm just, if the soil dies, we die. And so,
ooh, that's good.
If people, like, literally, not that's not just a soundbite, like, literally we will die if our soil dies. And so, you know, the men and women, the ranchers that are making the decision to do things that way, to be soil farmers, to rebuild topsoil.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like if I'm not trying to sound too dramatic, but if we're going to survive, they need to survive first to be able to continue to do it, to rebuild our topsoil. And for them to survive, they need a market for those products, for that meat that they're producing.
You guys get all that?
Yeah, that was very confusing. Slow it down to
we'll have it all broken down for you.
But they need a market to sell to if they're going to survive. And so, again, even if we only ever do 30, 50 grand in a year, it's still something to help support them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the savior of all this at all. It's just, I see that there's a problem. I believe there's a problem. I don't yet own land to be a rancher myself. So how else can I get involved?
Nice.
And amateur hour, not bringing a stick, but like the stick is kind of my solution to that.
Cool.
So every little bit helps.
That's mission. That's definitely purpose and big picture thinking. Well, Trevor Gibbs, founder, creator of the Man Bar, which is not a bar, it's actually a stick, and it doesn't have nuts in it, even though it's meat and nut bar. So it's a Man Bar, not stick, with no nuts. Man Bar. You can find it at trymanbar.com.
Yeah.
His social channel as well, Try Man Bar. We'll have all those in the show notes. But man, thank you for your time.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it. We know you're busy. We know he's got a pediatric appointment shortly here after this, but for having us at your place, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for taking me hunting the last couple of days. Man, I'm sorry that I missed on the shots last night.
That's all right, man. Hey,
it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't shot anything in a long time. So.
You didn't have the right gun. We'll blame it on that for this one.
Yeah.
And
no excuses next time.
But we'll get back out there, man.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll definitely fill that freezer up.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, man.
Absolutely.
And for everybody else, well, you guys know the deal. It's another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I'm your host, Jake Thomas. We'll see you next time.